Bangladesh. It is the 8th most populated country in the world, with approximately 160 million people living in it. While 21.3% of the urban population live under the poverty line, approximately 65% of the population in Dhaka live in slums. Dhaka has approximately 5,000 slum clusters, with over 10 million people or over 1 crore people residing in these places. A slum is usually a settlement of at least 10 households and a minimum of 25 members, which makes them very congested. Ladies and gentlemen, we are Group 1 and we will be presenting to you our project, Slumdog Millennials, a perspective of urban slums in Bangladesh. The purpose of our project is to give you a macro analysis of slums and to show you the situation of slum dwellers through the case studies in the presentation and to talk about their future prospects. Why are slums formed? Due to the population boom in Bangladesh, a lot of people migrated into the cities at a very fast rate. This was furthered by the rapid urbanization rate of approximately 2.96%. More people started accumulating in the cities. Unfortunately, the government was unable to provide them with adequate shelter, and thus more slums were formed in these areas. But despite the lack of housing, why do these people still migrate? A lot of these people lose their houses in the villages due to constant river erosion. That leads them to come to the cities. While approximately 40% of them come into the city in search for jobs, the other 20% come for meager income search. But what do they do here? 1/3 of all male workers in slums pull rickshaws to earn a living, while others go into professions in the construction sites, transport services, or other areas. While no direct statistics is available, approximately half of the female workers work for either garments or domestic sector. Patriarchy is so prevalent in these areas that a lack of opportunity for these women exists, which make it very hard for them to survive because they're excluded from job sectors such as transport, and sometimes they also receive lower wages compared to that of male while working the same job. What does the Constitution say about the rights of slum dwellers? According to the Article 15A of the Bangladesh Constitution, the government has an obligation to provide the basic necessities of life, including food, clothing, shelter, education, and medical care for every citizen of Bangladesh. This caused the formation of the petition, as well as a High Court order in 1999, that the eviction of slums would only be legal if a proper formation notice, as well as a program for resettlement of the slum dwellers being evicted is proposed. Any forceful eviction without these measures would be considered a gross violation of the country's law, of the country's constitution, as well as the UN Conference in Human Settlement in 1976 that was formed. The adverse water and sanitation situation in slum has led to 85% of the people not having access to proper toilets, while 90% of the slum dwellers lack access to clean water to drink. It is unfortunate while the government spends billions of dollars over the last 5 years in improving the water supply across the urban areas, has near to no investment made to improve the water supply in slums because they are considered informal settlements. This was the macro analysis of the situation of these people. But through the following segments, we will understand the struggles of the lives of these slum dwellers and the challenge that they face on a regular basis.
I'm going to talk about slum kids. Now, these are scenes that we often see on the streets of Dhaka. Whether you go to Gulshan or Gulistan, you will find random street kids ask for money, but most importantly, they beg for food. According to Bangladesh Demographic and Health Survey 2011, over 50% of children in the poorest wealth quintile are stunted, with 40% being underweight. Let us discover the life of one of these kids. This is Sumon. He is 12 years of age and lives in Korail Bosti. He can't remember the last time he felt full. His day starts and ends with the beating of his father. But things were not always like this for him. He used to study in a back alley school, but like others of his age, was forced to leave school to earn a living at the age of 7. According to UNICEF, urban slums have a primary school attendance rate of 65.1%, which is very commendable. But they can't continue because of a struggle for food. Like Sumon, there are 7.42 million working slum kids across the country. Sumon started his work life as a mechanic's helper who beat him up when Sumon had an accident. In 2008, a children's opinion poll revealed that 1/4 of all working children reported they had been physically punished at their workplaces. Sumon currently works in Khalil Chacha's restaurant washing dishes and is happy with his job. Like him, there are approximately 1,53,000 children working in restaurants or tea stalls. In his free time, Sumon likes to play video games or buy an ice cream with his money. But most of his friends spend their money on drugs. Sumon doesn't expect much from life because he has seen expectations hurt a lot. But sometimes, he hopes for a better future for his little sister.
Our next case looks at the lives of the slum elders, which we shall do through Muhammad Kashem. Muhammad Kashem is a man in his late 60s who was born on the bank of River Meghna, but he had to relocate to Dhaka due to river erosion. Upon entering Dhaka, he and his family settled into the Agaga slum in a house which was smaller than the size of a standard bathroom, but even then, the entire family had to pitch in to pay rent and electricity. Both of Kashem's daughters were married off very young to give them protection from the slum goons who had begun to take notice, and to do so, Kashem had to pay dowry in money and motorcycles and TV. This is not uncommon, as 31% of all slum marriages are settled with dowry. A few years down the line, Kashem's only son, Ruhim, was wrongly arrested for a crime he did not commit, and he refused to let his father pay the bail as the money was needed for Kashem's pain medication for asthma. He had asthma and he needed the inhaler, which was pretty expensive. This is also not uncommon, as 14.5% of all slum elderly suffer from asthma. Numerous more suffer from partial blindness, from rheumatism, and from gastric issues. Today, Kashem lives in a cold, dark house all by himself. His daughters, married off, are beaten by their in-laws and not allowed to visit him. His only son is in the jail. His life is desolate. His one hope is that he'll be able to die on the same ground as his forefathers. But with his meager savings, he knows he might not be able to do so.
Nasima, age between 24 and 28. Nasima had an ordinary childhood with her family in Faridpur. But at the tender age of 14, Nasima was married off and brought to the Ambagan slum by her husband. The Ambagan slum is situated right behind IBA hostel near Farmgate area. Within a year of her marriage, she was pregnant with a son. However, like 35% of the slum-dwelling women, Nasima was a victim of domestic abuse at the hands of her spouse and her in-laws. Unfortunately, domestic abuse is a common sight in most slums and is seen as a typical family matter. But Nasima was brave, and tired of her mother-in-law's constant abuse, she decided to retaliate. And this is what she did.
আমার জামাইও মারতো আমার শাশুড়িও মারতো পরে মুই না 3 দিনের মাথায় দিছি করে মায়ের যা ঠিক করবো না তার চুলের মুঠি ধইরা ওয়ালে হেলাইছি বাড়ি যা মানছে খারাপ করলে কোকটা আগে নিজে বাইসতে লই
Perhaps due to the physical abuse during pregnancy, alongside other possible causes, Nasima's only son was born autistic and mute. But her troubles were only beginning. Her husband was no good, lazy, and an avid gambler, and soon got arrested by the police, forcing her to provide for the whole household by herself. The rent alone of a small shanty room in a typical slum is around Dhaka 2,000. So she was forced to take up work as a part-time domestic worker. Half of the poor female workers in urban settlements are employed as domestic workers. Nasima is lucky that her landlady allows her to use her washroom, and she does not have to use the common shower, which is used by at least 15 families in the slum. In fact, only 9% urban slum dwellers have access to improved sanitation. During her early years of marriage, Nasima took contraception because she could not afford, financially or mentally, to take care of more children. 60.1% of women aged 15 to 49 are using contraceptive methods in Dhaka division. So what does Nasima envision for her future? She enjoys her independence to a certain extent. but has to work 7 days a week and gets exhausted with her life at times. She no longer lives with her husband, but is reluctant to get a divorce due to safety reasons. With no one to care for her in her later years, and an autistic son who she will instead have to care for all her life, her future to her seems bleak at best. And yet it is a wonder that she manages to go through her daily life with an open spirit and a cheerful demeanor.
So many problems, but are there any real ways forward? The Ministry of Local Government, Rural Development and Cooperatives is working on the Millennium Development Goals of 2020, one of which is to improve slum life by providing them with minimum services, and these can be various types. They could include information regarding jobs and the training required to get those jobs, as well as providing them with access to credit to create home-based work, and even separating portions of the city into special zones so that slum dwellers can carry out micro-enterprises, farmers market, and product markets. These go hand in hand with the poverty reduction strategy papers, in which sections speak of encouraging primary vocational education as well as stopping child abuse and providing shelter for children, scavengers, the aged, and the disabled. These could be improved by developing the participatory slum upgrading program, which is basically employing slum dwellers in the development programs that work in their zones. There are fundamental limitations though, and they're threefold. The funding limitations are common in developing countries like Bangladesh, even despite NGO help. The land constraint is very real for a small country such as ours, and even when relocation is possible, centralized job market make it tough for the same standards of living to exist outside of Dhaka. But let's end on a hopeful note. Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story of a boy who lives where we throw away our garbage. 70% of Dhaka's waste flows through the Buriganga River. It is a toxic black gutter. And on the banks of this river lies a settlement called Jinjira. And it is here where a little boy used to live. He used to cross the river every single day for cricket practice because he dreamt he'd be part of the national team. It took him a long time to get noticed, but eventually he did wonders for the country. And a minister asked him what he wanted. And he asked for a bridge. The Babu Bazar Bridge. We are of course talking about Muhammad Rafiq, one of our finest cricketers. He still lives in Jinjira, and there are many others like him who stay back in the community that shared their joys and their sorrows. They contribute in community hospitals and schools. They believe and hope in their communities, and that is why we believe that the Rafiqs of today will keep crossing that bridge for a better tomorrow.